Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Rosie. And this is the follow-up, actually what got cut off in her first video she just did with me. The borderline tells you they're bipolar to excuse their histrionics, and that the borderline is her sister-in-law, and the story got cut off. Funny thing about this video, it was confirmed not suitable for advertisers. So, and there is absolutely nothing in that video. Nothing in that video that's over the line. What it is society, YouTube, Google protecting the borderline. Protecting the borderline. They're trying to make these borderlines into some kind of weird protected class. They can't let that happen. So I'm going to just go back to the paragraph of where it got cut off and then go from there. Okay. So a few weeks back, my sister-in-law invited us to dinner. Now, the sister-in-law is the good one, not the narc. She calls the narc the bad sister-in-law. So a few weeks back, my sister-in-law invited us to dinner. Knowing what I know now, I wish I declined, but I went along. One of the first things the narc felt the need to tell me was how my 2.5-year-old son broke my mother-in-law's phone. My mother-in-law had told her not to say anything to me, and I could tell straight away that the way the narc told me was in a way to get into my head. Right, like, sorry, he's 2.5 years old. 2.5-year-olds break things, you know. Sorry. My relationship with my mother-in-law is good, and she has since told me that she only didn't want to make a fuss about it and me to feel bad about the phone. When the narc had told me about the phone, I could sense the smug undertone of it. Also that same evening, the narc was speaking about her ex-husband's girlfriend. My sister-in-law had known this ex-girlfriend and made a small comment that she had been a nice girl and had said no more. Well, my mother-in-law called me a few days later and said how my brother-in-law, who is married, also that same evening, the narc was speaking about her ex-husband's girlfriend. My sister-in-law had known this ex-girlfriend and made a small comment that she had been a nice girl and had said no more. Well, my mother-in-law called me a few days later and said how my brother-in-law, who is married to the narc, had called her and said how she came home after our meal and had said how my sister-in-law was rubbing her face, how lovely his ex-girlfriend was, and making the narc feel bad. And again, this goes to the calculation. This goes to the planning and the calculating cruelty of the borderline. That's not bipolar. She starts off by saying, hey, I'm bipolar, so whatever fucking meanness, horrible shit comes out of my mouth. The stuff that I had to think up. These aren't just fly off the handle comments. These are things she had to think up. That's not bipolar. That's borderline. That's a monster. This was total bullshit, and this is the first sign of her manipulation in games. Since this, I have felt very uneasy, and she has now latched onto my mother-in-law, who has been unwell, and coming across as the great daughter-in-law taking care of her. However, I know she resents our mother-in-law. She wants to move back to her country with my brother-in-law, but is frustrated, and even said, I'm waiting for his mom to die so we can move away. Instead of finding a job, her parents are giving her money to get therapy for her BPD. And remember, she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. You know what her parents can do with that money? They'd be better off taking that money and wiping their ass with it. Because that's basically what she's doing. A borderline in therapy is worthless. It's actually more detrimental because they can hone their skills and see how can I manipulate the therapist. Just take your money and her parents should take the money and wipe her ass with it. But her parents have probably already figured out she's so fucking toxic, it's better off just to give her the money and let her do her thing if it keeps her away from them. Guaranteed. Oh, God. Oh, this cold hasn't gotten bad. It's just lingering. Ugh. She made a comment about how my sister-in-law, who I have said I have a great relationship, made a comment about not hearing from me. The narc continued to say how my sister-in-law was making weird comments about me. I didn't ask her what, as I didn't want her to know it got to me. My mother-in-law heard it too, and when the narc was out of the room, she said there is no way my sister-in-law would say anything about me, as we are close. But this is a sign of her triangulating and stirring. It's been on my mind ever since. The small doubts come into my head that maybe she is telling the truth and people are talking about me. Luckily, my husband is not keen on the narc either and is telling me not to listen. It's too early for me to do anything about this, and I don't feel I can warn the family about her, as it could come back and bite me. Also, they are just normal, nice people who, with all respect, don't know about narcs and toxic people. So unless they're burned, they won't understand. I feel I literally have to step back, keep my dignity, and watch her do her thing, and hopefully she will be her own downfall, and people will see for themselves. Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You don't get involved. Listen, if a borderline monster has a victim and the victim's not seeing it, you're not going to convince anybody. They got to see it for themselves. Victims of borderline personality disorder have to see it for themselves. You can't show it to them because they're under that influence, especially people. But you know what? Normal people are going to spot it. If you just stay in the background and don't engage it and don't bother it, and if somebody asks you, like, hey, what's the problem? Like, I would say, look, I just think she's toxic, and I have my reasons, and I don't want to stand here and because she'll be able to twist whatever I say anyway, because I understand people like this. All I'm telling you is this woman is toxic, and you will eventually see it for yourself. I can't convince you. You're going to have to see it for yourself. But if they end up asking, it's probably because they have a sneaking suspicion anyway. Ollie, I know I'm right about this woman, but I'm powerless to do anything apart from step back. I feel a fool for letting her in this much when my radar went off the moment I met her. Thank you. It would be good to hear your thoughts and hear your and others' thoughts. Rosie. Yeah, Rosie. I mean, that's part of... What do I say about narcissism? Not fighting the narcissist. The only way you win is not to play the game. You can't save anybody. They have to save themselves. The only way you win is not to play. You know you got it. You just step back. You let it happen. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. The only person you can save is yourself. She's going to therapy. All she's in therapy for is to hone her skills. It's a supply for her. It's a supply. I had this woman pegged as borderline 3 sentences in your first letter. Okay, this is a borderline monster, and you can't save anybody from it. They can only save themselves. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much, Rosie, for another contribution in the second half of the story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance. Take